As Marshal of the University, it is my honor to declare the proceedings of the 512th Convocation of the University of Chicago open and to introduce the university's 13th president, Robert J. Zimmer. Please be seated.
Good afternoon and welcome. As the Marshal has just announced, today's ceremony is the 512th time that the University of Chicago has assembled for a convocation. From the time classes began here in the fall of 1892, the university has held a convocation ceremony at the end of every quarter, allowing students to be recognized and celebrated for their achievements immediately upon completion of their studies, and to do so through formal exercises just as we do today. The primary purpose of convocation is, of course, to award degrees. But these occasions satisfy other important objectives as well. At convocation number 1, on January 2nd, 1893, the university's first president, William Rainey Harper, set out goals for these ceremonies, goals which 119 years later we continue to observe. Harper believed these occasions of high ceremony to be a necessary and nourishing part of the life of a university, and intended them to literally call together or cause to assemble all parts of the university community. In Harper's words, convocations are meant to bind together into a unity the many complex and diverging forms of activity which constitute our university's life and work. Today's ceremony, then, is also about reflecting on the whole of what we do across the many libraries, laboratories, and classrooms that make up our campus. And in addition, it affords us all a moment to reflect upon the accomplishments of our past and the opportunities for the future, individually, collectively, and institutionally. I confer the degrees awarded this afternoon by authority delegated to me by the university's Board of Trustees, represented today by Trustee Mary Lou Gorno, and I do so on behalf of the faculty of the University of Chicago that has responsibility for the educational programs recently completed. I welcome you again to the 512th Convocation, a time-honored ritual that recognizes achievements of which we can all be proud.
As Provost of the University of Chicago, it is my privilege to introduce Marsha R. Rosner, the Charles B. Huggins Professor and Chair of the Ben May Department for Cancer Research, who will be offering today's convocation address. Professor Rosner is an expert in the field of signal transduction and has had long-standing interest in elucidating the mechanisms by which growth factors mediate the growth, differentiation, or death of cells. The work in her laboratory extends from the discovery of basic biological mechanisms to identifying key targets for therapeutic intervention. A leading scientist, as well as a scientific leader, Professor Rosner has served as the director of the Cornelius Crane Laboratory for Eczema Research, a deputy director of the University of Chicago Comprehensive Cancer Center, and a fellow of the Institute for Genomics and Systems Biology. She is the founder and past chair of the University of Chicago's Committee on Cancer Biology. Highlights of Professor Rosner's service to the community include membership on several editorial boards, including the Journal of Biological Chemistry, and on the Scientific Advisory Board of the Children's Memorial Institute for Research at Northwestern University. She has been a member of scientific review panels for the American Cancer Society, the Veterans Administration, the Department of Defense, and the National Institutes of Health, where she currently serves on the Tumor Cell Biology Scientific Review Panel. Professor Rosner is a devoted teacher of both undergraduate and graduate students, receiving the Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Teaching last year. She is actively involved in science education and currently serves on the Board of Trustees of the Illinois Math and Science Academy. Professor Rosner is an elected fellow of the Institute of Medicine of Chicago, and most recently was awarded the Gerald N. Wogan Lectureship at MIT in recognition of her scientific achievements. The title of her talk today is, Who Owns You? Marsha.
Class of 2012, parents, family, and friends. When I was a young assistant professor, pregnant with my second daughter, Nicole, I found myself facing a somewhat bizarre but perplexing dilemma. Namely, who owns my daughter's placenta? Like other members of my birthing class, you might find yourselves puzzled over my compulsion to keep Nicole's placenta. Did you want to bronze it like a baby shoe? You, like them, might ask. Actually, placentas are extremely rich biological materials that contain a number of proteins, including a class that enables cells to grow. These same proteins drive diseases such as cancer, and I wanted to understand how I could control them. I thought, if I am successful, I can publish a paper along with my daughter as a contributor, our first mother-daughter collaboration. Well, I was a bit over-optimistic in my goals. When the birth commenced, one of my female graduate students dutifully swooped in with an ice bucket to collect the dripping appendage and ran back to the lab to store it in a freezer. However, by the time I had extracted the protein of interest, it had lost most of its activity, and Nicole herself went on to explore other academic interests unrelated to biology. We never did write that paper. But what I did learn were some of the myriad reasons why I had such difficulty claiming my daughter's placenta. A common practice of the hospital was to sell the placentas to companies for cosmetics. One resourceful anesthesiologist liked to bury them in his garden as a rich source of fertilizer for his rose bushes. Others bury them as part of a long cultural tradition to preserve the souls of those born. And finally, my own obstetrician turned out to be terrified that I would use the placenta to monitor oxygen levels in the fetus, and if displeased, would use the information to sue him for malpractice. I did not. In light of all these strange ideas about placenta ownership, it might not surprise you that the theme that I want to discuss today is the meaning of ownership in your future. Quite simply, who owns you? Your ideas, your work, your tissue. Oh, you say, what an absurd question to pose after all those hours of lofty intellectual effort? The answer is obvious. You do. Or do you? So let's start with an easy one. Can I have your tissue? I asked this of one of my classes in cancer biology, and from one of my students, I received an offer of tissue in exchange for a grade of A. And I answered to the student's outrage that I was not sure the tissue was worth a grade of A. Well, why not? Because from a research point of view, there is significance in numbers. And that stems from the fact that tissues and tumors, just like your class itself, is a collection of individuals with distinct characteristics, sharing common properties or experiences, but still marked by distinct variability or heterogeneity. And because of this heterogeneity, a single tissue sample may not allow conclusions about the underlying disease. With regard to ownership, there are at least three principal issues that need to be addressed: knowledge, money, and intellectual credit. So knowledge is usually related to the issue of informed consent. This is a legal requirement for conducting research on human subjects. It's required before we can store patient tissue, unless it's part of a standard diagnostic procedure, such as, let's say, removing a mole. However, if the identity of the donor is withheld, then actually informed consent is not required for research based on blood or human tissue. And this loophole is the key to our ability as researchers to use human tissue to tackle complex diseases like cancer when we're federally funded. But you'll be happy to know if I use private dollars, I don't even need to tell you that I'm studying your tissue. There's another aspect of knowledge, namely how do you plan to face the future? Should everyone get his or her genome sequenced? What should we do with the information gained? Is right to privacy of future generations infringed? For example, do you own this information? Or do your future progeny also own it? An example is a daughter had a parent's genetic information withdrawn from the Icelandic database because the information pertains to her genetic history as well. Should disease risk analysis be done for everyone or just families with a history of that disease? Would you want to know if you're at higher than normal risk for cancer, for example, breast cancer? And don't smile, guys, because you also can get breast cancer. Suppose you opted to have a mastectomy before you even completed college. How would this change your lifestyle? What are the risks if the knowledge related to medical history or prognosis is shared? For example, the effect on insurance rates, on relationships or marriage prospects, on lifestyle. Are you worried yet? So are many others, and there are a number of pending lawsuits as a consequence. In the book entitled The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot, about the appropriation of tumor cells in 1951 from a dying Henrietta Lacks without her consent, a number of these examples were discussed. One case that is particularly compelling relates to research for purposes other than that specified by the donor. Thus, tissue from Native Americans that was donated specifically for the purpose of diabetes research in this cohort ended up being used to study schizophrenia and inbreeding among Native Americans. Offensive and insensitive is perhaps the kindest description of this incident. But if one chooses to limit tissue analyses to only those specified by donors, how would one carry this off in practice? Color coding? Would this not confound results as one changed the content of the samples being studied, dependent on the specific application of the information obtained? There are other cases as well. Placentas, yes, tested by hospitals for birth defects without parental consent, a source of future lawsuits. Genetic testing without authorization for the benefit of insurance companies. Patients who are actively impeding research by requesting their tumor tissue back. Lawsuits to prevent storage of and research on fetal blood as an invasion of privacy. But now we're getting into a gray area. Competing benefits for society from research on the one hand versus the right to privacy of the individual on the other. So, how should we address this dilemma? Skloot noted 3 views of informed consent that have been advocated. An ethicist proposes transparency. Tell patients their tissues and medical information are being used for research. A lawyer specializing in technology and society suggests that we should act as conscientious objectors and refuse to donate our tissue. After all, isn't our right to choose how our tissue is disposed comparable to our right to choose our financial heirs? Here, autonomy and personal freedom are seen as higher values than the benefits of science to society. Alternatively, a university official contends that consent actually devalues the worth of human tissue. For example, how can archived human tissue be used to look for the origin of a virus, such as SARS or Ebola, if the virus has not even been discovered at the time the tissue is harvested? This argument posits that the potential for good in society is a moral imperative that outweighs objections related to individual rights. Well, so far we've only addressed part of the problem. What about money, commercialization? Some argue that no drug or diagnostic test would ever be developed without the profit motive. Should scientists be required to disclose that harvested tissue may be used for profit? If money is made, should patients reap part of the profits from the potential application or invention? Would the idea for the invention exist without the patient material? But would the patient ever make money from his or her tissue without the research effort? How about a solution where at least a fixed percentage of these profits must be directed toward future research or medical charities? Should one pay for tissue donations? If so, will this encourage illegal harvesting of tissue? Are cells or tissues from one individual worth much in the absence of other patient samples? As mentioned before, usually the value of tissue to science comes from being part of a larger sampling size, but not always. The problem is now compounded by the number of gene patents that have been awarded to date. Don't worry, no company can literally own the genes in your body. They have to be altered sufficiently to constitute an invention. However, these patents on genes can prevent researchers from studying the genes and limit the development of new diagnostic tests using these genes. About a fifth of all human genes are currently patented, especially those that are most relevant to diseases such as cancer. Since we now know that single genes are not sufficient to diagnose a disease, the need to overcome patents on multiple genes has caused numerous companies to elect not even to develop new diagnostic tests. The Supreme Court recently considered a lawsuit against patenting genes that was championed by James Watson, who is a former University of Chicago undergraduate, co-discoverer of the DNA helix, and winner of the 1962 Nobel Prize. Citing a different case where they ruled against patenting a diagnostic test, Supreme Court did not issue a decision, but instead they sent the debate back to the lower courts. So, should we allow Myriad Genetics, which owns the patents for the high-risk genes BRCA1 and BRCA2, to prevent patients from getting a second opinion unless the new consultants pay a fee to Myriad Genetics? Does this policy also impede other scientists from being able to conduct research on the genes? And finally, to make the counterargument, would loss of the ability to claim ownership have impeded research leading to the initial discovery? The last issue is actually more subtle and can also include an aspect of ownership and value other than financial, namely scientific credit. Who owns scientific or other information? Should this information be owned publicly or privately? When you worked in a lab during your undergraduate years or graduate years, who owned the information that you generated? The lab head, the researcher, the funding agency, the university? All of the above? How does one get credit for work if the results are disseminated informally before publication? How is quality control maintained if journals and editorial control are bypassed by the informal media and social networking? We in the scientific and medical arena are struggling with the same issues as the journalism world. In a tradition long established at the University of Chicago, I hope that I've asked more questions than I've answered, and that I've raised more problems than I've solved, and indeed, I probably haven't solved any. Because, class of 2012, this is your future, and these are your issues to face. You thought your challenges were over, but in fact, they have just begun. And we trust that you're now as well prepared as any to deal with them. So, class of 2012, congratulations.
As we begin the awarding of the degrees, may I call your attention to the Award of Honors listed in the Convocation program, as well as the name of candidates receiving degrees today in absentia. At this time, in the favoring presence of the congregation here assembled, the deans of several faculties or their appointed representatives will present the candidates for academic degrees to the president of the university. The Dean of the College will now present candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science in programs in the college.
Mr. President, these students have completed the prescribed program of undergraduate studies. On behalf of the faculty of the college, I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science, and welcome you to the Fellowship of Educated Men and Women.
Tara Michelle Bini, Venkat Ram Bodapati, Timothy Michael Cronin, Alexander Dulshanos, Wenbo Fang, Justin Jasso Matson Hansen, Alicia Marie Jude, Alexander Julian Konienko, Roberto Javier Kuchar, Hao-Shu Lee, Matthew Thomas Magala, David Gabriel Nasca, Adrian Oguchi Oko, Jasmine Partita, Joshua Alexander Seal, Kedar Sunil Shirol, Calvin Wenheng Shi, Wesley Alexandra Spacht, Virginia D. Thomas, Damon Wang, Abigail Inhaber Woodham.
The Dean of the William B. and Catherine V. Graham School of Continuing Liberal and Professional Studies will now present candidates for the degree of Master of Liberal Arts and Master of Arts in Teaching in programs in the Graham School.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the William B. and Catherine V. Graham School of Continuing Liberal and Professional Studies. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Liberal Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the liberal arts, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Liberal Arts, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advance knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Fadil H. Al-Sakafi, Taraka Bertrand, Catherine Michelle Edwards, Daniel Geiter, Thomas Herman, Linda Congreve Levin, Eric Russell Meyer, Kate Christina O'Hara, David Odell Ringer, Michael D. Wilson. President, these students I now present have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the William B. and Catherine V. Graham School of Continuing Professional and Liberal Studies, and I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Arts in Teaching of the particular subject for which they are qualified.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts in Teaching, and I express the hope that your work will contribute to the education of children and to the creation of a society dedicated to learning.
Kathy Yin Han Ang, Caitlin Mary Bonham, Gloria Therese Wesso, Nicholas Matthias Limbeck, Jasmine Nicole Marshall, Aidan O'Dowd Ryan, Priyank Srivastava,
The Dean of the Division of the Biological Sciences and of the Pritzker School of Medicine will now present candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Biological Sciences and the Pritzker School of Medicine.
Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Biological Sciences and the Pritzker School of Medicine, I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Nicholas Lewis Block, Byron Carlisle Burnett, Louis Yoon Choi, Rebecca Beth Deco, Robert Foreman, Jeffrey Adam Goldstein, Matthew Hobson Green, Beverly Amy Lau, Tara Lee Lavoie, Teen Lee, Michael Lusignan, Eric Donald Mortensen, Katerina Jennifer Rusick, Scott Adrian Smemo,
The Dean of the Division of the Humanities will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Humanities.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Division of the Humanities and the special programs approved by their departments. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the humanities, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts. And I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advance knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Breck Furness, Jennifer Lauren Mack, Tracy J. Reeves, Stephen Forrester Rice, Kirsten Louise Wellman. Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Humanities, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Emmanuel Helena Elian Bonafu. I Katarina Katsapoulou. Suna Choi. Teresa Maria Danze. Arnab Day. Sylvie Gutas. Thomas Angelo Grano. Catherine Lee Hundley. Alessandro Pajewski. John David Person. James N. Talon.
The Dean of the Division of the Physical Sciences will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Science and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Physical Sciences, as well as a candidate for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy jointly with the Division of Biological Sciences.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Division of the Physical Sciences and the special programs approved by their departments. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Science.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the physical sciences, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Science, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advance knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Mohammed Matouk Al-Hussein. Kevin Russell Labe. Saran Lou Prasert. Jonathan Nallo. Bing Yi Wang. Jiaying Xu. Yibin Zhang. Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Physical Sciences, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Winfried Reinhard Barta. Emmanuel David Buder. Changji Chang. Xiaohui Chang. Kun Gao. Stephen Roland Green. Joseph Sean Guinness. Myungji Lee. Weishan Liu. Emily Marie Norton. Sravana Reddy. Michael Andrew Schmidt. Jonathan Andrew Van Schelt. Dan Wang. Eva Waits. Junjun Zhang. Ting Zhang. Mr. President, the student I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Physical Sciences and the faculty of the Division of Biological Sciences, I have the honor to present him as a candidate for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Tobias Timothy Falzone.
The Dean of the Division of the Social Sciences will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Social Sciences.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Division of the Social Sciences and the special programs approved by their departments. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of the Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the social sciences, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advance knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Jamie Atkinson. Amy Michelle August, Brandon Joel Bales, Kai Anderson Barker, Kirby Bennett, Kyla Roberta Bourne, Christy Monet Brandley, Erin Jenna Cable, Zoran Chen, Ana Esperanza Chocarro Garcia, June Chung, Laura Kathleen Conley, Ivana Sharkovich, Elizabeth Caitlin Ann Danielson, Dragana Jukic, Scott McVoy Dodds, Shikao Feng, Laura Elizabeth Garvin, Bradley Green, Caitlin Nicole Haas, Matthew Harrison Hartman, Stephen Charles Hedger, Chin Fun Shi, Richard Robert Kaminsky, Julia N. Kane, Zachary Arthur Knitter, William Alexander Stevens Lang, John M. Leaker, Nicholas Cameron Levy, Natasha Marie Lake, Yin Yin Lee, Michael Eugene Lombard, Mary Kyle McDonald, Elias James Malunas, Seamus Montgomery, Cyrus Alexander Mavahedi Lankarani, Josiah Brandon Nunziato, Mark Ortman, Mackenzie O'Neill, Clara Picker, Rachel Minna Pearson, Kelly Ryan Rebeck, Danielle N. Rendina, Laurel Ellen Salak Makupa, Tatiana Spiegel, Emily Jane Soper, Kailash Srinivasan, Kara Leiko Takasaki, Vanessa Rose Teresi, Brian Michael Trump, Mary Elizabeth Vandenplas, Patrick Francis Van Kessel, Catherine Christine Trehubets Ventine, Joshua Ramon Vera, Sarah Anise Walsh, Kimberly Michelle Williams, Allison Elizabeth Wood. Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Social Sciences, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Tiffany Corina Bloomfield, Katarina Borovichkova, Asan Isaac Butt, Amy Ellen Cooper, Theodore William Dunkelgrun, Stephanie Christine Eccles, Elizabeth Fine, Minnie Go, Catherine Alyssa Goldfarb, João Felipe Gonçalves, Jonathan Daines Hall, Shannon Lee Marie Hield, Daryl M. Heller, Daniel Robert Hubner, Laura Zoe Humphreys, Jeremy Lynn Jones, Chelsea Louise Kivlin, Michelle Ann Lelievre, Andrew Mattarella McKee, Mihir Anil Pandya, Rafael Santana, Caroline Schuster, Jessica Jackian Sim, Lori Rose Skelly, Beckett Sterner, Richard Thomas Wayhing.
The Dean of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Business Administration and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the University of Chicago Booth School of Business.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of professional studies prescribed by the faculty of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Business Administration.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Business Administration, and I express the hope that your work will further wise choices in the allocation of economic resources for the benefit of all people.
Randall William Anderson, Monica Unyang Ball, David K. Beach, Samit S. Bhandari, Mindy Ann Budgore, Marian Elizabeth Burlack, J. Hilario Kasip, Sean Michael Santilli, Yu Chen, Jeremy Brandon Clark, Christine Mila H. Cruz, Scott Davis, Mary Fugo de Reina, Scott James Duba, Aaron Lynn Ennis, Andrew Ralph Evans, Roger Farish, Juan Carlos Fonegra, Joel Brian Fortney, Daniel Scott Germanata, Matthew Justin Gerke, Jaspinder Griwal, Francis Xavier Graywit III, Anuj Gupta, Joyce L.Y. Shu, Matthew D. Lawton, Chuanbu Liu, Christopher H. Moore, Kieran Patrick Morgan, Sayed Kasra Moshkani, Christopher J. Myers, Anthony Michael Novara, Scott Ohm, Ki-Young Park, Konstantin Petrov, Atul Philippe, Angelo Pileggi, Cecilia Esther Rabis, Parthasarathi Srinivasan, Frank Matthew Strell, Niraj Swami, Nak N. Vu, Don Lanier Woods, Xiaojun Wu, Leon Xiaoliang Zhao, Joseph Andrew Zerker.
Mr. President, the students I now present have attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and have prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Meng Li, Li Lan, Seung Min Ye, Zhe Yu,
The Dean of the Divinity School will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Divinity, Master of Arts, and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Divinity School.
Mr. President, The student I now present is academically qualified to engage in the profession of ministry, having completed a course of study prescribed by the faculty of the Divinity School. I have the honor to present him as a candidate for the degree of Master of Divinity.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Divinity, and I express the hope that your work will contribute to a learned and effective ministry dedicated to the spiritual welfare of humankind.
Madison Reed McClendon. Mr. President, the student I now present has completed a program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Divinity School for foundational education in the academic study of religion. I now have the honor to present him as a candidate for the degree of Master of Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in divinity, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advance knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
David Price Curlin. Mr. President, the students I now present have attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and have prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research in the academic study of religion. On behalf of the faculty in the Divinity School, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Carl Eric Hefty. Michael Sohn.
The Acting Dean of Students of the Irving B. Harris Graduate School of Public Policy Studies will now present a candidate for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Harris School.
Mr. President, the student I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Irving B. Harris Graduate School of Public Policy Studies, I have the honor to present her as a candidate for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Jana Elizabeth Johnson.
The Associate Dean of Students of the School of Social Service Administration will now present candidates for the degree of Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the School of Social Service Administration.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the School of Social Service Administration. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Arts.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts, and I express the hope that your work will promote the welfare of individuals and the achievement of a socially just society.
Keisha Lee Fisher. Jocelyn Janine Jones. Paula Pineda. Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the School of Social Service Administration, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Christina Marie Andrews. Kelly Canada. Jayata D. Jones. Juhi Rio Kabaski. Yu Sung Kim. Desmond Upton Patton.
Please rise for the singing of the university's alma mater. Be seated.
This is a special day for all of you upon whom I have just conferred a degree. And it is a special day for the family members and friends who may be here to join you. It marks the completion of your study, or at least one phase of that study, a path that I trust has been challenging. I hope that you are enjoying this moment of celebration and perhaps moment of reflection that this convocation affords. You are now all graduates of the University of Chicago. Because of your achievements that we celebrate today, with your family and friends, each of you will always be connected to the University of Chicago, a connection that I hope that you and we will foster for many years. The University of Chicago is an institution driven from its inception by an idea that one could create and continuously renew a university focused on rigorous, intense inquiry and analysis. The university, through its work every day, expresses the view that clarity derives from the clash of ideas, the challenge of assumptions, and the willingness to accept answers only when they meet the tests of argument. We seek understanding that is complex, expandable, and fluid, rather than simple and rigid. An understanding that reflects analysis rather than ideology, that accepts complexity over the comfort of simplicity, that seeks to delineate both the power and the limitations of argument, and an understanding always ready to incorporate new data which can emerge and which, in fact, must be sought. We believe that the best education, the most empowering education, and the most powerful learning take place in this environment of constant challenge that is implicit in this culture of rigorous inquiry. and that this culture is responsible for producing ideas of power and importance to humankind. This focus on rigorous inquiry has defined the University of Chicago, its research and its education at all levels since its beginning, and it continues to do so today. The university and its culture are renewed every day by the work of its faculty, students, and staff. And while it is natural to focus on your own achievements today and what they mean for your future, you can also take great satisfaction in your contribution to the ongoing renewal of your university, the University of Chicago. I know that as graduates of this university, in the coming years, you will be called upon to act, to speak, and to lead. And like so many University of Chicago graduates who have come before you, you will approach this challenge of leadership empowered by your University of Chicago education. The power of analysis and ideas that you have experienced here and that are now your own will serve you wherever your path takes you and whatever challenges you confront. Each of you who received a degree today has received help and support from parents, family, spouses, partners, children, friends, mentors, or university faculty and staff. And while it is your achievement that we mark today, all of these supporters can rightly take great pride in your accomplishment. And so to all degree recipients, please accept my congratulations for all you have achieved. I wish you all good fortune and happiness in the years ahead. Enjoy your coming adventures wherever they may lead you. Congratulations.
This now concludes the 512th Convocation of the University of Chicago. Crescat scientia vita escolatur. Let knowledge grow from more to more, and so be human life enriched.